So now we come on to our media picks for the month, or sorry, should I
Or
say media pick?
and
Media
yeah, and
pick.
you were really horrible to me about this as
I
well because
was.
I was saying to you,
I'm sorry. I was really horrible to you. Mister. How did you describe it? Parking your tanks on the lawn. Um, so I thought I was being dead clever, right, in choosing for this month's media pick something that's entirely local to me. It's not often that the BBC focuses on the northeast of England in such a positive way. Normally, it's a story about people drinking themselves into an early grave, but but
or car factories closing
or
or
car
various other.
factories closing, exactly.
Yeah.
But instead, this month, there's been a wonderful series, a TV series, that has been exploring a house through time. In fact, that's the name of the program. And in this instance, it's a house on a street that I am familiar with. And I was like, oh, I can talk about this. I can comment on it. I know what my pick's going to be. And then you went and
And
went, and I'm
then
going to
I was going
choose.
to say, yeah, well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My name's Andy Brockman. I live in London. I'm going to choose to. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was I was going to say, before you mentioned this to me, before you said that this was going to be your media pick, what did I send to you in Facebook Messenger that my media pick was going to be?
I can't remember. I'm so annoyed. Oh, God, no. Oh, gee, oh, no.
I
Oh,
think it
yes,
was
of course.
David Olusogu's new TV series that ended this week called A House Through Time. But anyway, that's
Yeah, yes. I know you. I know. Oh no, so I thought you were going to say Game of Thrones for a second. Then,
actually I almost did,
I know. That's why. That's
but I thought that'd be too much for you
it
after.
would be too. Well, no, you see, but you found a way to top it. You stole my pick from me. Anyway, sorry. We should. I should get over myself, and we should. We
Yeah.
should.
Talk
we
about the
should
program. Let's talk
talk
about the
about it.
program 'cause it was blooming
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So it's a brilliant program, and the previous series I think was set in Liverpool, not
Liverpool.
London, Liverpool, and it follows the story of a house, and in this instance, it's a house on Ravensworth Terrace, in the west end of Newcastle on Westgate Road. Uh, One of the places where my wife often does her work actually is at the top of Westgate Road. So often we would drive down that or walk down that hill going into town. It's about a mile away from the river. Newcastle upon Tyne really focuses on the Tyne element of being of the river. In terms of placement for travel, but also crucially industry. And the story of this house starts with the purchase of the land and the building of these properties for up and coming uh, tradesmen and sort of upper middle class or a bit of folks
And
in the
and and,
city.
and this is as industrial Newcastle has been to develop in the early 19th century. And I think the house was built about 1820. Is
Yeah,
that right? I
absolutely.
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So quite forward thinking in that sense, actually, to build
yeah.
just a mile away from that hub. And also as well, this is the time. This is a time when the town of Newcastle gets busier and busier and busier, dirtier, dirtier and dirtier, and also actually becomes a city as well. So in the late 1800s, it is granted city status. But all of this story, this whole thing, is told through the records of subsequent residents of this townhouse. A townhouse with 3 or 4 floors, which backs onto a shop front on Westgate Road. And actually, in the most recent episode that I've seen, even though I know you've seen the whole series now, the most recent episode I've seen, there is a drapery in that shop, and the family put a door through there, which the lintel is still there today. And so, for me, what I love about this series is that for me it combines so many of my interests. I love the ways in which architecture can tell you something about the history of a building. I love the use of the local records and archives offices and resources in this show. In fact, I've been for my for research that I've been doing, I've been in some of the same places where we see him visiting, and also as well actually they focus on a beautiful, wonderful local institution called the Newcastle Lit and Phil as well in this show, which absolutely deserves more attention. So it brings together all of this wonderful research capability and capacity that anyone can do. Crucially, there's been no digging here, there's been no specialist work done. You can do it if you have the time, and it tells the story of this building, which in turn tells the story of the city. It's an excellent way of exploring
And I think we should say that it's presented, the research is presented and moderated through David Olusoga, who's a social historian and actually brought up on Tyneside himself,
Yes,
as he alludes to many times during the course of the program. So it's almost a sort of personal, it's a personal journey as well in terms of his own heritage and his own heritage as a Tynesider as well. And to me, it's the best kind of social history. Okay, you take any example, and it's going to be artificial. And in fact, we know from the comments that the production team and producer in particular gave an interview to one of the local newspapers in Newcastle about how that house actually came to be chosen. And in it, she describes how they looked at a number of buildings. One candidate was actually knocked out because the stories of the residents over the last 200 years were just, as words which she used, were too dark.
Yeah. Unrelentingly dark.
They needed a venue where they could do light and shade over history. For every child that dies before the age of 5, there had to be somebody who had a successful career and a successful marriage. Put crudely. Because otherwise the audience would just switch off. It would be too depressing.
But also, actually, I think in a very real way, the balance of stories here covers a much more balanced sense of what life was like in the town.
And that's clearly the important thing. And that's what's so clever about the format. There's the old quote about from, again, it's Wheeler, archaeology is digging up people, and so is actually architectural history. Because whatever the architectural style of a building, somebody chose it, somebody designed it, somebody built it, and somebody lived in it.
Yeah.
And so what you have is a very easy route, because we all like stories, we all like soap operas. In some form or other, whether it's Corrie or Game of Thrones. They're actually serial dramas, and I had to get it in somewhere, you see. But no, in all seriousness, what you're able to do here is look at 225 years almost of complex social history with lots of change, lots of upheaval, lots of opportunity, but also lots of danger, and and you're able to make that approachable by taking it by filtering it through the lives of individual people who the audience is able to empathise with.
I think one of the most powerful things that I've taken away from this series so far is the vulnerability of even those people who you think are going to have a wonderful life. So there's been a banker
who went bankrupt.
Exactly. He was a naturalist who was a friend of Charles Darwin's. There has been someone who was involved in the there was a cheesemaker who was a naturalist, wasn't it? Sorry. And there's a banker as well who went bankrupt. There's also as well someone who was involved with the bottle trade. A fascinating little story unfolded there on the banks of the River Tyne, in an area that I didn't know was a bottle factory. But also because of the flux in international commerce, their story didn't turn out as they might otherwise have planned. But actually, it all reminds me of this book, A Street Through Time. It's just a brilliant book. I'll just sort of try and hold it up so people can see its entirety there. A Street Through Time, which very cleverly does precisely what this show does. It picks a spot in the landscape and highlights how actually, if you're paying attention, almost anywhere will give you a sense of how history has unfolded. It doesn't have to be a king and a queen. It doesn't have to be a capital city. Everywhere changes, and history is unrelenting in its forward march. So it's just such an accessible and wonderful way of telling this story. And I think, well, at the moment it's available on BBC iPlayer, but hopefully it'll be available on other services soon. And if you do get a chance at home, I think you could do much worse than watching this show. Now, you did spoil something for me though. and that is that apparently, because you quite rightly assumed that we would have watched the whole thing.
Sorry.
We haven't yet. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But no, that is to say that there's now a plaque on the house, because we haven't been there since, or been in that part of town since this show was filmed. So I haven't seen this plaque for myself yet. I'll be going there soon. But was this what broadly speaking? What was that outcome then? What did they sort of put on the plaque?
Well, I think this is one of the nicest things that comes out of the program. We talk about placemaking a lot in community archaeology and community history these days, and quite rightly, because it's important to give communities ownership of the place where they live. I think all the evidence is that it makes life better. People and places become more cared for.
Hence, I felt a little bit of ownership over this series. Thank you very much.
And I stole it from you.
You stole it, you filthy southerner. So go on.
5 Ravenswood Terrace, the house that we're talking about, now sports a City of Newcastle plaque to Joshua Alder, who was this wonderful Victorian scientist who began as a cheesemaker, I think you rightly reminded us, and then basically retired to become a internationally renowned marine biologist. He was a founder member of the local Natural History Society in Northumbria. He discovered a number of new species of sea animals, and was internationally famous and a contemporary of Charles Darwin at a time when the natural sciences were going like gangbusters, and the contributions of people like Joshua were really important in the foundation of modern marine biology and zoology. So it's the local people now can enjoy that moment of somebody really rather special lived here.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, just to expand on that a little bit, I really liked how in that episode they juxtaposed the marine species and samples that he was bringing home into the drawing room or whatever, into his study, with the fact that downstairs in the kitchen they would have been having to fight off all manner of bugs and rats and things. They had this amazing little bug catcher, and there were descriptions apparently of like just lines of beetles hanging from the ceiling over food, so they'd be sort of like extent there. So there was this wonderful thing where again in terms of a social sense of history, the reality of the people who are trying to run the house, and then this chap bringing home all these squidgy things to look at in a microscope. It was just a wonderful wonderful thing to pick up on, and I think it's precisely this sort of research that has brightly been deployed in this way. And as I say, anyone can do it. You can go down to your local records office if you're curious and look at who used to live in your house. So
absolutely. One other thing I would just say in talking about this, and it is actually the second series, not the first, and David also presented both, I think. But I think one of the interesting subtexts in this one, actually not subtext, it's actually been there overtly in the programme, is his own relationship with Tyneside, Newcastle, as a Tynesider of Nigerian heritage. That bringing that new cultural sensitivity to the established city, and his reactions to his hometown. It's fascinating. That in itself was really a really important part of the program too, I think.
Okay, then. So then, Mr. Practically Cockney.
My grandmother was a true Cockney.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm a Kentish. I'm a man of Kent.
Okay, fair enough. With Cockney connections. Sorry, I'll stop ripping you for the London connection. But nonetheless, as a resident of London, as someone from that part of the world, how do you think Newcastle came across in this show? Then does it work? So in that sense, from my perspective, I kind of already know a lot of this story, and it was adding lots of lovely textures to it that I can now go and see. For example, like the bottle factory. But for someone outside the area, does it work in terms of painting a picture? And what sort of picture did it paint for you?
I think it's actually really important. Now, again, regionality has been a very hot topic recently in terms of regional difference and the sense that the further you get from London, the more remote you are from political decision making, and the less politicians care about you. We've seen it in the debate around the B word. I think it was Newcastle declared first in a certain referendum in 2016, and it was the fact that it was narrowly a Remain win which led people to say, wait a minute, there's going to be a problem for the Remain vote here. It could go the other way. And I think one of the other things that was terrific about this programme is that it shows that it ain't just the north. That what you've got in cities like Newcastle and others, the previous series in Liverpool too. Although Liverpool's perhaps more established on the cultural map because of its association with the Beatles and playwrights like Willie Russell and shows like Brookside and so on.
But also in that sense, and also I guess an Irish connection as well with Liverpool.
And the Irish connection too, yeah. But taking a city like Newcastle, it shows as if some of us don't need telling. That actually, even some of our Southerners don't need telling. But
not in my experience. But go on.
I think it's just important to remind people watching that, or show people if they weren't aware of it before, that these cities, these places, these regions have rich and deep histories, and cultures and heritages of material heritage like the buildings, but also cultural heritage like the people, and that we really should respect them and know more about them because in the end we all inhabit the same planet.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the things I hope people take away from it, in terms of this story, because if you ask people in the UK about different regions, Scousers from Liverpool and Geordies from Newcastle, they're seen as very specific to their region where they live, shall we say? And often, so given that my mum was from Liverpool, I can say this. Scousers are often seen as a bit scummy in that sense. Outside of the area, they're often portrayed as that. And I think Geordies sometimes suffer from a similar characterisation. And this is often a characterisation coming from the south, and it's about this idea that nothing really important happens up north. But what's interesting, and
also the people in the media in the past weren't encouraged to use their natural accents, for example.
Well, no, yeah. So in that sense, to a certain extent, in public discourse, the North was either was being muted or downright ignored. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I hope that people take away from watching this sort of series, and indeed the one set in Liverpool, a sense that that lots of these issues. So, for example, one of the most resonant things that come out of the series so far for me has been actually what industrialisation does to people, and how Newcastle really is an expression of that. So you had serious slums, you had health problems. There was a very strong sense of overcrowding and this kind of thing, and I think some of these still current issues, certainly in various parts of the world, as seen through the lens of a city that's now in a post-industrial era, I think should help, and I would hope help to humanise people who are living through their own industrialisation, or people who do suffer, for example. So one of the things that this show has highlighted is that in the past it wasn't uncommon to die from, for example, diarrhea, and that does happen around the world all the time. So I think it's a really useful tool to highlight that there is commonalities in human stories, and in this context, just spreading that story into a part of Britain that most people, I think, quite understandably wouldn't necessarily have heard of outside of things like maybe the Newcastle half marathon or something like that. Is a powerful
or whinging Newcastle United, who think they have a natural born right to be in the Premiership and in Europe.
Do you know what? I don't disagree. I think you're right. Newcastle United supporters are an interesting bunch. But no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, exactly. So beyond the football and beyond some of the more obvious things, it's been really nice just to see that and see it on a national stage. It's been good, definitely. So yeah, again, watch it at home if you get a chance. Thank you for your time, Mr. Brockman, this month. We've discussed some very serious issues, and we've had a couple of technical glitches here and there, but we've made it through yet another month. Are you? Do you have anything interesting planned for the coming month?
A few things, not many I can talk about at the moment, but hopefully things will become clearer in the next few weeks. And I would just say, as usual, we invite our viewer to contribute to the conversations below. We have, as you say, we've dealt with some very pithy, powerful issues this month. It would be great to hear people's views on the things that we've discussed. And I apologise to Newcastle United supporters. I love you all.
They can take it. They can take it. They've had worse.
Look, I support Charlton Athletic, so I need to say no more.
Yeah. Sorry, for people outside the UK, yeah, that's not exactly Premiership material.
We used to be. We will be again.
Dude, keep the faith. Keep the faith. And also, actually, very brief fun fact. We often park in the football stadium because the football stadium car park is used by the local NHS trust that my lovely wife works for. So we often park in the football stadium. Yeah. Anyway, we've heard enough about Newcastle. Thank you, as ever, guys at home, for watching. Thank you for your time, Mr. Brockman. And as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.